to infinity and beyond.
This is me. This is how I win.
Were you rushing or were you dragging? Answer!
You're a wizard, Harry.
Say what again? Say what again? I dare you.
No, I am your father.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Are you not entertained? Are you not entertained?
And here we go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back inside the film room. Zach Goins here with Johnny Sobchak. Johnny, how are we today?
I'm doing well, Zach. I'm doing well. How are you?
Love to hear it. I am good as well. I'm excited. We've got a big episode today. A lot of stuff to talk about because it's a double header. We haven't had one of these since you've been on, I don't think, since you've been co-hosting.
Yeah,
it's a rare event, but we had an original plan to do Bad Trip on Netflix, and then Johnny realized that Nobody was coming out in theaters as well. Johnny's over there fully vaccinated, so my guy went to the theater to check out Nobody. Meanwhile, I'm at home watching Bad Trip, so we're splitting it up. He's reviewing Nobody, I'm reviewing Bad Trip on Netflix, and we've got our Falcon and the Winter Soldier episode 2. We've got some news, so a lot to talk about today. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's as you said, we haven't really done that before since I've been on, so that's fun, and it was nice, as more and more people get vaccinated, more and more movies are hitting theaters to actually go back and check out some new releases and be able to talk about them. Soon we'll both be heading back to the theater and being able to talk about something that we've seen there, because Godzilla vs. Kong is this coming week. It's on the horizon, and I'm stoked.
I am thrilled as well, and that perfectly leads into my what's going on weekly question, because I've been doing my monster homework. I finished my my Snyder Cut homework last week.
Yeah, you've been
going through. Yeah, I know. I've been very studious. I haven't really had any time to just be like, oh, that looks good, let's watch that. No, I have a strict schedule. So probably about a month or two ago at this point, I watched Kong Skull Island on HBO Max. Then, as I said last week, we got the Godzilla 2014 4K from Warner Brothers. Yes. So was able to check that out, did a little write-up on the site if you want to check that out. Enjoyed that, and then last night booted up HBO Max again to dive into King of the Monsters, which I had been told by anonymous sources was garbage. And while I will say the Rotten Tomatoes consensus seems to be in the same vein, I really enjoyed it. If I'm going to watch a Godzilla movie, I want to see monsters throw down, and it delivered on that front. So it was good enough for me.
That's good. That's maybe I need to give it a second chance, but I'm glad that you enjoyed it.
I mean, it was definitely like, I'm not going to say it's a Best Picture winner. It did not get snubbed by not getting nominated back in 2019. But I mean, there's a lot going on. It's really crazy, but it's very much like disaster movie meets monster movie, because that's exactly what it is. And I thought that was just like crazy enough to be out there. And also like I had the right mindset of like, okay, I'm not going to question these humans' plans too much, because this is a Godzilla movie. So It's not like I was over there like, well, why is she trying to save the world this way, but he's doing no. I'm just go with it. And I really enjoyed it. And I also rewatched Neighbors, which I'd forgotten how good that was, of the comedy, Seth Rogen, Zac Efron, Dave Franco, Rose Byrne. That's a classic for me. I think I hadn't seen it in a while. But I actually listened to the Rewatchables podcast. They did an episode on it from 2014. And then I listened to that, and then I was like, man, that is such a good movie. I want to go rewatch it. And I did. And Loved it. Still just as funny. Iconic performance from Rose Byrne. She can do it all.
Yeah, no, Rose Byrne. She's been. It's funny because that you actually mentioned that too, because I caught some of Bridesmaids on TV yesterday. And I actually really caught myself like watching it for a good like 20, 30 minutes. Because Kristen Wiig, and Rose Byrne and
Melissa McCarthy.
Yeah, Melissa McCarthy. It's just like, I can't believe it's almost 10 years old now, or is about to be 10 years old. And they were like really in their prime. And they're still, in their prime, I suppose. Melissa McCarthy just got nominated for an Oscar like 2 years ago or something. But it's pretty cool to see that development. That movie still holds up. It's a great, great comedy. One of the best
definitely.
of the last decade. On my front, I was revisiting a few different things that I had seen. Some of them I hadn't seen for years. Some of them were a little bit more recent. And then I checked out one or two new movies, new to me at least. We need to talk about Kevin, Lynn Ramsey's film from 2011. I hadn't seen it since maybe like 2015. And I was a huge fan of You Were Never Really Here, which is her most recent film with Joaquin Phoenix. And this one I don't think is quite as good, but Ezra Miller, Tilda Swinton, John C. Reilly, all three of them are excellent. It is not a light viewing though. It is extremely dark and disturbing. So you are warned, but I would definitely recommend checking out. And then LA Confidential. Zach, you probably haven't seen it. It's from 1997.
Nope.
But it's like a crazy ensemble cast. It has Guy Pearce, Russell Crowe, James Cromwell, Kim Basinger, Danny DeVito, and unfortunately Kevin Spacey as well. So
always a bummer when that gets thrown in there.
Always a bummer. And the movie, I liked it a lot more when I saw it maybe 2-3 years ago. I thought it was pretty great, and then revisiting it this time, I just wasn't big on it. I don't know, and it's a mystery in a way. So I think maybe once you know the answer, it's not as like captivating. But can't really fully recommend that one anymore, I suppose. And then Chef from 2014, Zach. I know you're
Chef's
big on
Kiss.
that one.
That's a good one for me.
I enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was a lot of fun. I got some genuine laughs out of me. It was cool to see.
Was that a first time or a rewatch?
Yeah, it was the first time. And Jon Favreau, just seeing him direct something smaller and more intimate was fun, and definitely very meta, the story and the kind of arc that he goes through. And I'm not sure if you saw my Letterboxd review, though. I couldn't help it.
You compared it to Adam Sandler. How dare you?
It feels exactly like an Adam Sandler comedy, like a Netflix comedy.
No hate on The Sandman. I think it's a more elevated version of
well, I said it was moderately less crass and more artful than an Adam Sandler comedy. Because while it's very much about the artistic process and this guy's work as a chef, his career, what it means for him and his family, and is handled very well. He's a very good filmmaker, and he wrote and directed it, so that's very clearly there. But a lot of dick and ball jokes. We got his very attractive wife, or his ex-wife, and then his very attractive kind of girlfriend or like fling that he has going on with Scarlett Johansson. It just reminded me of like I guess it's
but if you take Jon Favreau out, put Adam Sandler in there, then we're gonna put perfectly. Then we're gonna throw Jennifer Aniston in instead of Scarlett Johansson. Let's see, we'll put David Spade as the John Leguizamo character.
Yes, yeah.
I don't know who would take Sofia Vergara's place.
Oh,
but
anyway, Salma Hayek.
Okay, I'll allow it. But then that goes from what? Let's see. What does Chef have on Rotten Tomatoes? It has a 87% certified fresh. If you throw that cast in there instead, it goes to a 24% though. Like,
wow,
that's just factual. And I love The Sandman as much as anybody.
That's just factual. Oh my
so
God.
I think I understand what you're saying. The premise could have been an Adam Sandler one, but I don't think it's fair to compare. I know you said it's more elevated or less crass, but I think for me, Chef is like, it's it's not, I don't mean this to be like a pun, but it's like a very comfort food kind of movie, you know, like
That's true.
it's like
Yeah.
I'm gonna turn it on and it's like cool hanging out with these people. It's fun, it's light.
Yeah.
And like the
It's very light.
grilled cheese scene is like a showstopper. I got a cookbook for my birthday for my brother, and it's like he knows obviously that I like love movies and pop culture and stuff. So I'd never heard of the guy, but it's this YouTuber called Binging with Babish. I don't know if you're familiar, but he has like YouTube videos making dishes from movies or shows or stuff. And so this is like the cookbook of all of that. So like they have a thing in there of one of the recipes is the pasta from Chef that he makes for Scarlett Johansson. And then they have like Krabby Patties from SpongeBob, or like the soup from Seinfeld that the soup Nazi serves up. So it's just like different stuff through pop culture, but there's a couple different recipes from Chef in there. And it always inspires me to get in the kitchen.
Hey, yeah, that's wonderful. I mean, I am not even remotely experienced in like cooking or like any type of chefery. So
chefery, I believe that's what they call it at the finest restaurants.
Exactly. So I have to, I can't cap on that at all. But it was a really enjoyable movie. I would recommend it for sure. I liked it a lot. So I'm glad I finally got caught up, because a lot of my mutuals and friends had seen it on. I noticed they'd already seen it on Letterboxd and were always talking about it. So it was nice to finally understand why, because I do get it.
Yeah, it makes me hungry. It's a good one. Don't watch it on an empty stomach, or else you'll end up like pausing and going to get snacks.
Yeah, that's the funny thing too, is I didn't eat anything while I was watching it, and I was like, kind of I was feeling hungry after.
It did its job. But before we move on to Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I just have to plug this. We've got a giveaway running on social media right now on our Twitter. Wonder Woman 1984. I know we weren't crazy high about it, but it's still pretty cool to get to win a free Blu-ray copy just for retweeting and following us on social media. So if you aren't already, go check that out. Throw it a retweet. It's our pinned tweet. You have until, I believe, the 30th. So you've got a couple days left to enter to win, and then we will announce a winner. So check it out, Wonder Woman 1984, and we'll have a write-up of the 4K home release coming to the site soon as well. So we'll use that as our superhero segue into episode 2 of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And this should be interesting, I think, because Johnny and I, apparently, we haven't discussed it too much, but have very differing thoughts on this. Whereas he was I would say that you were very high on the first episode. Maybe, okay, very high is a fair statement. I was like mid excitement, and now it's flipped almost. But I was like pretty high on this second episode, the Star Spangled Man, and you called this, I believe, horrendous. Is that correct?
Yes, it's no bueno.
I didn't think this was like an expert television episode or anything like groundbreaking, but I didn't find a single thing in here that to me felt horrendous. So I'm interested to hear what it is that made you feel that way.
Hey, I guess we're about to find out, huh?
All right, let's set the scene. We need to start pulling descriptions from somewhere else, because the Rotten Tomatoes episode descriptions do nothing. It says the longtime allies of Captain America, Bucky and Sam, cross paths once again. So that is, again, the entire series synopsis, I feel like. But I'll just freestyle here for a second. So episode 2, we find like that great description says. Episode 2, we finally see them come together. They were completely apart in episode 1. So Falcon and the Winter Soldier are together again. And also we get to dive deeper into the bad guys, the Flag Smashers, as well as the new Captain America, and see what's going on with him. So basically, Falcon's going on a mission to try and infiltrate the Flag Smashers. And then the Winter Soldier finds out about it and tags along. And then while they're there, they're really in need of some help, as they're getting beat up by the Flag Smashers. And then the new Captain America shows up, John Walker, as well as his sidekick, who I can't remember his name. It was like Phaser Beam or something like that. That sounds like something from The
Taser Face.
Incredibles.
Um,
Taserface.
no, it's Battlestar.
Battlestar. Okay. But so then they show up, and there's a little bad blood there because obviously Sam was completely blindsided by the fact that a new Captain America was introduced. They both were, and that kind of sets up this rivalry between the two. And then also, even though Falcon and the Winter Soldier are this buddy duo, they also have their own beef to squash. So that's really the way zoomed out view of this episode. So if you want, let's go ahead and dive in and see just kind of what. Let me hear it from you. What was it? What was it about this episode?
So for me, it was kind of, because I did say I thought it was just so not good. I think that it was a little bit of everything. So what, like the first episode, for example, and I watched it a second time. I watched it 2 times, that first episode. I've only watched this one once. But the second time it worked even more for me because I guess when I went into the first episode, the initial time, I was not really sure what to expect from the show because I was avoiding most of the promo, and I was wondering where they might take those two characters like together. And then of course in that first episode, they're not really together at all. They don't even meet up. And so it was kind of nice just to see them going about their like day-to-day lives, like readjusting to the world after the snap. Bucky's trying to, right his past wrongs, and Sam is getting to know his family again. And so I really liked that slowed down kind of pace, even though the opening action scene was really cool and I thought was done well. I thought the rest of the episode was even stronger, and just a lot of like, even the way they shot it with the cinematography. And I like the new supporting characters they introduced, like Sam's sister Sarah. I thought it all worked like pretty well, even though the flag smasher stuff was a little bit on the weak side, especially with Sam's kind of buddy in the military delivering all that exposition. I thought it still mostly worked. And this one was kind of like amplifying all of the smaller elements from the first episode that I didn't like, and also getting rid of like the slower, like smaller scope personal scenes with Bucky and Sam, where now it's just, okay, we're back in like Civil War mode. Throw these guys together. Let's go. It's a big global action adventure like story, which I understand why that's the route it's going. And like my issue isn't necessarily with that, but I think the execution for me was just like not really working. It kind of left me scratching my head a lot of times. And on top of that, I've seen other people, and we had talked about this in the group chat on Twitter with the first reactions and kind of reviews for this episode, talking about, wow, look at the way this, Marvel Disney in this episode is tackling like racial issues in America, and how we haven't treated minorities well, like in the past or like even now, like issues with the police and whatnot. I'm just like, actually watching it, I felt like it was so ham-fisted and not like subtle or like nuanced in any real way. Like something just happens and then they don't address it whatsoever, and then they just move on from it. Like there's no actual, like, it didn't feel like there was any actual depth to it. And there's some elements of that maybe, hey, they will expand on later on, but other parts, it's just very clear that they don't intend to actually dive into those things more than they are. And so, yeah, the action, the writing, the kind of the story arc for this episode and the way it's developing, I was just not like keen on any of it really.
See, the majority of the first part of what you just said kind of was the opposite for me. Like I thought that the first episode was slow, and I wasn't crazy about it because of that. And like, it was cool to see, but not really what I was expecting. And especially when you consider that this is a 6 episodes versus 9 episodes, like WandaVision. So when it was that first episode that was like, okay, wow, we're like, at this point now, 2 episodes in, we're a third of the way through this.
Yeah.
So like, I didn't feel like there was time to really like, not waste, but like to go at that pace. And so that's like having them separated. I was like, I don't know how much more I can take of this. Like, I don't know what I was expecting from this. As I have said previously, is like more of the turn your brain off, action, intense, fun stuff versus like a WandaVision, which is more like trying to figure out what's going on, you know? And so that's like, that's exactly what this episode was to me. And so that made me happy, you know? So I understand your like criticisms of maybe like the more thematic or cinematic types of stuff, but like, again, kind of like, yes, but that's not necessarily what I was looking for here, you know?
I mean, that's fair.
Go ahead.
No, that's fair. But just because, and at this point, like, I'm not even, I know we always see this online or especially on Twitter, and people are critical of other people for quote unquote, like you're not rating it for what it is. You're rating it based on what you wanted it to be. And that's not what I don't feel like that's what I'm doing, because even if, so maybe I would prefer like a smaller, more personal, intimate, smaller scope kind of story or like show. I was already expecting big action. I was expecting the more globetrotting Civil War type story. I just didn't think that it was done well in this. I mean, Civil War is one of my top 5 MCU movies. And I know a lot of people kind of, you know, poo-poo that movie, especially compared to The Winter Soldier, which I think they're about equal in quality. But I don't know. There's just something about this that's like rubbing me the wrong way. I don't even know. Maybe part of it's to do with John Walker's like Captain America and how he's like being positioned. And then of course he has like his black best friend sidekick, which is like the 5th or 6th time they've done that in the MCU now. And I'm just like, wow, they're really doing that again. And
I think that's part of like, to make it even more of like, I'm not trying to be Steve. Well, it's like you're wearing his stuff. You've got the black sidekick, like your Falcon, you know, like It's trying to be like, even if he says he's not, it's still like proving that he is, you know?
Right. And there's definitely things about that character that I maybe I don't like how they're doing it, but I think it could actually pay off.
I think I don't know if you follow him. He's in the NCFCA, but it's Thomas Manning. He tweeted something along the lines of like, I know we're not supposed to like him, but like this character of John Walker is probably like a good person who's being put in like a really tough, impossible situation of being like, he thinks he's stepping up and doing the right thing. And like, he's doing what he is asked to do. And it's not his fault that like the way that the US government went about replacing Captain America is like, he's just doing it, you know? So it's like,
I think
so I think that he has the potential to like eventually have a turn and be someone who you can root for just because of those like good intentions. So I'll be interested to see where that goes.
Yeah, that's a valid point. And I definitely hate him. But it's not even, I see what Thomas Manning is saying there. And it's possible that they do try and go that route and push it to where we see him as someone who's being like exploited or like vulnerable, just because that's already a theme that they've established. Of course, more specifically talking about Black soldiers and Black people in America in general. We saw it in the first episode where Sam and Sarah, they can't get, you know, the bank is not helping them with their mortgage. And then you have in this episode the kind of a plot twist with
Isaiah Bradley.
It's a Black super soldier from the Korean War era, and he, you know, Sam finds this out, Bucky reveals it, this guy, and he fought, you know, decades ago. Sam never heard anything about it, never knew anything about it, and so that kind of flips things off. But then was going to get to this, but it kind of leads right into it, so I'll just say it now. But there's that scene after they leave his house, and Sam's like pissed off, like he's confused, he's angry, like upset. Bucky's trying to calm them down. They're kind of having like a back and forth in the middle of this road in the street. And then the cops pull up, and of course the cops are immediately like, hey, what's going on here? Like, is this guy bothering you? They're talking about Sam, like he's not even there. They're asking for his ID, even though there's like no reason for that. And then they're like, oh, he's an Avenger. And then they're like, oh, sorry about that. We're like, we'll just, we'll just go. And then that's it. Like, that's the extent of the like commentary on it. And then they take Bucky in, actually, because he has a new warrant out for his arrest because he missed his therapy, which I thought was kind of funny. But just like it's just so surface level. Like, I understand that maybe they don't want to make it that the point of the show, and I don't think they would need to, but I think it's just kind of, I mean, we saw the same thing with Emilio Estevez. There was that,
right? I was just gonna bring that up, that you guys had sent in the group, that
yeah,
we know that Disney isn't, like, they can touch on it, but we know that they're not gonna dive into
they want
the intricacies of it,
nothing to do with that. Which I don't know. I feel like at this point, I mean, you're already making Sam share a Disney Plus show with Bucky. Why not just like go in and just dive headlong into that kind of narrative, or at least that like kind of commentary deeper than what they are doing. But then on the flip side of that, as far as my complaints go, like that's a big part of it. But talking about it strictly for what it is, which is the action adventure Civil War style, that big action set piece, the main one I would say is like the highway chase where they have these like,
or the 18-wheelers.
Yeah, these like semi trucks, 18-wheelers, because Bucky and Sam end up following the trail. Well, and that's another thing too. I can't remember. Maybe you can like remind me. Seeing Sam and Bucky, like they kind of just randomly get together. What was Bucky doing there? Like, did he get a call to come and like meet?
Bucky
Sam?
went to go track Sam down because he wanted to confront him about giving up the shield. I don't know why he like went all the way to Munich to do that instead of like waiting until he was like coming home,
Right.
But that was what launched them to be together.
Okay, that makes sense. Because I maybe I wasn't paying like fully attention, but I was like, wait, what the hell is Bucky like doing here? Like, it just seemed like he was randomly like chilling. But so yeah, Sam's been kind of on missions anyway. But they meet up, and then they follow the Flag Smashers essentially to this warehouse, and then they're stealing.
Why? One quick thing: when they follow them.
Yeah.
Why did Bucky just jump out?
I know.
Like,
isn't that the most insane thing?
It's the scene from the trailer where they're like, what's the plan? No plan? What's the plan? And then like Falcon just jumps out and flies.
Yeah.
And then Bucky's like, I don't need a parachute. And I guess he was planning on grabbing onto a tree limb, like with his mechanical arm or something.
Yeah.
And ends up not getting anything and just falls 200 feet and goes splat, but like is okay. Which like, I know he's like superhuman or whatever, but like,
yeah,
we could still go about that a little better, buddy.
Yeah, I thought that was just goofy as hell. And that's another example, like, say what you will once again about the Russo brothers or their MCU movies, but I don't think you would see anything like that in like those movies. Like the things that happen there, yeah, of course they can be a little hard to believe, or like it's a reach, but this, when he jumped out, I was just like, what in the hell is he doing? And then of course he falls like basically straight down to the ground and is fine. And then they go to this warehouse.
Well, I will say I saw a tweet that was very funny that was like the bucking the trend of the superhero landing, where it's always like the crouched with one hand on the ground, and it had like Vision doing it, Wanda doing it, Photon doing it, and then Bucky like laying flat on his ass.
That is funny. I'll give you that. But then we get into this big action set piece, which was, I don't know how you felt about it, but basically, I would like to hear it in a second. But my biggest problem really was that, once again, we have seen it, because it's a set piece that feels like it's right out of a Civil War or Winter Soldier. It's on this long stretch of road. There's a couple of big semi trucks. They're kind of jumping back and forth. They're fighting, hand-to-hand combat, all that good stuff. And the Flag Smashers, as far as we know, they have super soldier abilities, but they very much seem like almost like ordinary everyday people who have somehow been given them, they've been given these powers, or maybe they've, maybe even against their will, and now they're being put out like into the world to complete like this mission and kind of work on their own agenda. But they're fighting Sam and Bucky, who have like ran and flown onto the 18-wheelers. And Sam and Bucky in the past, and even in episode 1, Sam does some crazy like fighting, like hand-to-hand combat on the airplane versus, Batroc, and in Winter Soldier and in Civil War, we've seen both of them be like extremely deadly, like hand-to-hand, like gods. And of course, Bucky has super soldier serum, and Sam is just a regular person with the wings and then, his own fighting abilities. But I mean, they got their fucking asses handed to them by this group of random like super soldier thugs. Like there's 5 or 6 of them. And I'm just like, what? Like this does not make any sense. Like it feels like so inconsistent with what we've seen in the past from like these two characters. And I realize, they were gone during the blip and then they came back. Well, I mean, they were fighting in the goddamn huge battle at the end of Endgame against Thanos and an alien army that had dominated who knows how many worlds, and they were fine and perfectly capable. So I don't necessarily buy that they had like some sort of like rust or something to that effect. But yeah, I thought it was lame. And I think the Flag Smashers thus far are just very weak. I think those scenes, especially in this episode, were some of like the weakest, worst that I've seen in the MCU. They felt very stilted, very awkward. And again, we don't have a ton of info on them at this point. Maybe it will be improved, but I'm just feeling like very low on them right now. And then, of course, not to cap off the scene that I thought was very not good, you have the new Captain America, John Walker, show up with Battlestar, his sidekick, and they kind of do almost a little bit better than Sam and Bucky somehow. And maybe it'll be revealed at a later point that these guys have super soldier abilities or something. But as far as we know and what they've said, they don't. Like, they're normal people. And of course, the scene ends with John Walker being kicked off of a semi-truck at full speed and landing on a car windshield and rolling off. And then 2 seconds later, he pops up and is like, oh man, that was like so not good. And then it kind of tails into this other like scene between those two and Sam and Bucky. But how'd you feel about that whole? It's because it's a big sequence, like no doubt. I'm sure it's expensive.
I mean, as far as just like entertainment value and action, I thought it was great. Like I really enjoyed it, but I don't know. I think we'll find out more specifics about the Flag Smashers and what it is that makes them powerful, because we know they have like some sort of like off-brand super serum, that is helping them. I mean, I don't know if it's the same thing that made Steve and Bucky so strong, but we saw like, I don't know if we know who it was in the first episode that like beat up the Falcon sidekick guy from the military. But he was like kicking people through phone poles and stuff. Yeah. But then I don't know, maybe there was some combination of like being caught off guard here, because they were going in thinking that Carly, the woman, was going to be a hostage, and then she kind of flipped on him. And then on the John Walker point, we don't know that he has any super serum or his what's his name again? I'm sorry.
Battlestar.
But we saw that clip during the Good Morning America, which shout out to the Disney synergy. But we saw him like throwing the shield, which I know that necessarily doesn't have to have like super serum.
No, not at all.
But like still the way that he was like doing all that was, we know that he was like, I'm not a super soldier, but I have guts or whatever, so like, I don't know. I feel like there's gotta be something about him.
I think there's something. Yeah.
That is making him, obviously he doesn't just like looks in general. He's not like as thick or jacked, like as Chris Evans, Captain America is. He's more of like he's not scrawny by any means, but he's like not as filled out. So I don't know what we'll find out there, but there's got to be something that makes him able to stand his own like against these people and do better, like you said, than Bucky and Sam. But I don't know. I thought it was fun and engaging and entertaining to watch, though. Again, I was more of just like going with it rather than like picking anything apart. So I think that's my biggest thing here that I am like taking away after WandaVision, I guess, of like the disappointment of like reading all the recaps and the articles and like trying to figure stuff out. I'm like, okay, Falcon and Winter Soldier, we're just going to go with it. Whatever happens. I'm not theorizing or making conspiracies about anything. Like, let's just see what happens.
Yeah. I mean, at this point, the only conspiracies or theorizing I'm having to do on this show is to explain how the plot and these characters are existing the way that they are, because as it is, it doesn't really make that much sense to me. But again, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. Maybe there's something that is going to come down the line that makes more sense, but yeah, I'm not crazy about this. I'm like, ideally, next episode kind of picks up and is a good amount better. We do have at the
We
very
have
end.
Zemo. Yeah, Zemo's coming in
Exactly.
next. So
that was
always a highlight.
anticipating him to show up in this episode, and he did for a very quick moment at the end.
About half a second.
Literally half a second. It was extremely awkward last shot, actually. But what do you kind of hope to see from him? Because it's kind of a little bit of a mini twist, because we find out that it's actually
Right.
Sam who wants to go and meet with Zemo, and it kind of almost wants to use him as like an ally of sorts.
Right. Like, I thought that we were going to see, I guess I had forgotten that he was arrested prior or at the end of Civil War, and that the government had him somewhere, but I was expecting him to be in line with the Flag Smashers, not in line with the good guys. But we get the like talking to Bucky. Sam's like, you think it's a good idea to go sit in a room with this guy, after we know that Zemo was able to brainwash Bucky.
Yeah.
But I think I don't really know what to expect. It'll be interesting to see him working almost in like a Suicide Squad. Speaking of, we'll get to that later, but like in the bad guy working with the good guys, a Hannibal Lecter type role, of being like forced to work with the good guys, even though I'm the bad guy. So maybe he does have some connection to the Flag Smashers, and I don't know. I guess do we know what
it seems like there's
Zemo's status? Do we know what Zemo's status was during the blip? I assume if he's in custody now, he was in custody then. Like, that he didn't disappear. I don't know how that works, if like he snapped and then reappeared back in his cell.
I think he would
after 5 years, or
because they show up exactly. It's been kind of inconsistent, but they're supposed to show up where they were when it happened. So it could be. But my main thing is, it seems like, based on the promo stuff that we've seen, that he's going to get out, right?
Right, with his purple mask or whatever.
So we don't. Maybe he escapes, when Sam or Bucky are there, and it turns into like another action sequence where they're kind of trying to fight to keep him there, or maybe the Flag Smashers try to release him. We don't really know. But I like Daniel Bruhl a lot. I think he's a great actor. I thought he was, really good in Civil War. So if anything can help like lift this show to something where I enjoy it more, I feel like his inclusion is going to be a big part of that. So I'm keeping my fingers crossed that that is a big part of this next episode.
All right, before we wrap up here, two things I want to point out that made me laugh. First of all, the line about the Hobbit, that they make a state, or Bucky mentions Gandalf, and Sam's like, Gandalf, how do you know about Gandalf? And he's like, oh yeah, Gandalf, I read the Hobbit back in 1937 when it was first released. Like, that's funny to think about, Bucky reading that and having that in his back pocket for what, almost 90 years. Like, that was a good one. And then as well, along the lines of the wizard, the big three that Sam references of androids, aliens, or wizards, and then their little disagreement about there's no such thing as wizards. Doctor Strange, he's a sorcerer. A sorcerer is a wizard without a hat. I thought that was a good back and forth, and that made me laugh as well. So two good highlights there for me. I don't know if there was anything else that you wanted to mention, but I am ready to move on to our news portion.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, I mentioned it a couple seconds ago, the Suicide Squad. We got our first trailer and some really, really fire posters as well. This is, of course, James Gunn's The Suicide Squad, not to be confused with the Ayer cut that is not being released of Suicide Squad. Riding high off of all of the Zack Snyder's Justice League hype, DC is keeping it rolling. What I know, you were so excited. You said this was going to be probably one of the best trailers of the year. Did it live up to the hype? What are your thoughts coming away from it? Break it all down for me.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, the posters were awesome. They kind of dropped like a bit of a teaser poster the day before to let us all know that the trailer was going to be happening the next day. Beautiful, definitely inspired by the Dirty Dozen, kind of like old gritty war films that James Gunn has said really inspired him. And then the day the trailer dropped, we got a bunch of individual character posters, another big group poster. So once again, Warner Brothers, HBO Max collab, totally killing it. Just like Godzilla versus Kong, just like Mortal Kombat. So that was good to see. And then the trailer itself has been, I mean, it was pretty damn huge. I feel like a lot of people were talking about it afterward, and I liked it a lot. It wasn't like mind-blowingly good, and I have really high expectations for this film, of course, but I felt like they didn't show a ton either, and this is something that we had been talking about in the group chat. But as much as they had so many, they had so many characters to kind of highlight or like show off real quick. There's a ton of action to look forward to as well. I thought that it did a good job, even for something that was almost 3 minutes long, just kind of giving us a little bit of everything, not showing too much, not spoiling anything, and giving us just kind of a taste of the tone, the humor, a little bit of the action, a lot of the gore, and just some of the character dynamics. So I think it did exactly what it needed to do. It wasn't a letdown or underwhelming for me, but it was just really solid, really good.
It looks very, very comic booky, which is awesome.
Oh, yes.
Like, absolutely. This is not we're taking a comic book superhero and putting it into the real world. Like, obviously this is in the real world, but like from King Shark to the giant starfish that we see to the costumes, like it is very much like straight out of the pages of a comic book, it looks like. Yeah. And I think that just looks so much fun. We know that's been a successful style for James Gunn with the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. I know you enjoyed Birds of Prey as well, but I think I'm higher on it than you. But Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn is one of the best characters in DC on screen, and I really love that opening little bit about them trying to go rescue her, and then she's like, "I can go back inside if you guys want." Like, I thought that was hysterical.
I liked that. That was a cool, funny little opening. But really, it definitely gave me Guardians of the Galaxy vibes. But I think we have to address the one who stole the show and our hearts was King Shark. The adorable little fella who
Sylvester Stallone,
it was revealed, and this has already been something that was speculated on before the trailer, and I had already known that, even though I don't think it was formally announced. Some people had suggested or speculated about Taika Waititi doing the voice, but yeah, so Stallone's gonna be doing it. You could kind of hear it because he does get a few lines, especially the hand line, which was hilarious. But yeah, no, and then of course there's like that amazing shot where he's like silhouetted and just rips a dude in half, which was even cooler to find out that it was like a big practical, effect with like prosthetics and whatnot. So, wow. Yeah. I loved King Shark in this. I wanted to see and like hear more, see him in action. And I think they delivered so spot on with what I kind of wanted to see. I would say, was there anything about this that really surprised you, or something that it showed or said that you weren't really expecting?
I mean, I'm with you on the fact that it's like basically still, even though it's a trailer, it's still like a teaser, which I'm totally okay with. I know what to expect from this, that I don't want to have anything spoiled or too much revealed going in on the front end. Yeah. So I was totally fine with that. I don't know. I feel like you tend to be the same way in general. Yeah, for sure. That's the tough thing too, is even with some films, I'd try to avoid trailers altogether. But with the big ones, of course, I can't help myself. Plus, we need to talk about it on here. So, but yeah, no, I didn't feel spoiled by it. I didn't feel like anything was ruined. The one big thing that I think was somewhat unexpected was that they just showed off Starro at the end. They're like, "Yep, this is Starro. It's a giant damn monster." Like they say a kaiju up in this shit, which was funny. But yeah, so that was a cool little reveal. It didn't like take anything away, because once again, that was something that had been speculated or rumored before. I think it's always good when you kind of make clear, even in something like the Suicide Squad, which is already made up of villains, basically. You still need like an antagonist, and I think setting that up right away is good and just makes it clear for the audience. But overall, really strong trailer. I'm sure we'll get another one probably closer to release, but I thought this was a good one, especially with the Red Band trailer, just setting the tone right off the bat and getting people's attention. I'm all totally with you there. I really enjoyed it. I'm excited to see more. Moving on, we've got some, once again, more release date shakeups here, all on the Disney front. Let's run through these and then we can talk about some of the biggest ones. Cruella stays on May 28th, which is the Emma Stone live action Cruella de Vil movie. Meanwhile, Black Widow is moving back 2 months from May 7th to July 9th. Both will be available on Disney Plus for the premiere access at $30 and will also receive a full theatrical release. So I anticipate I will be fully vaccinated by then. I will definitely be in theaters for Black Widow. I mean, if I turn my AMC stubs back on, I'll be in theaters for Cruella as well.
Right.
Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, which was supposed to be July 9th, the new Black Widow date, has now moved back 2 months to September 3rd with an exclusively theatrical release. So no Disney Plus in play there. But Luca from Disney and Pixar is staying put on June 18th and will now be a Disney Plus only, free of charge, like Soul. So that's a bummer for me. No, I wanted to see that in theaters, but I guess we'll have to Disney Plus that one. Then on the, I guess this is the Fox side or the former Fox side of things. Free Guy with Ryan Reynolds moves from May 21st to August 13th. The King's Man moves from August 20th to December 22nd, which is the 7th, 8th?
I think 8th.
What is it? Eighth release date there, which ventures, it's long past the New Mutants territory, but this is not at its own cause. These have all been pandemic related.
Right.
So I mean, I'm still going to see that. I can't put it in the same boat yet as the New Mutants, but we'll see. And then Deep Water moves from August 13, 2021 to January 14, 22. And Death on the Nile, which has also had quite a few release dates, September 17th to February 11th, 2022. So of those, what are your biggest bummers, your biggest letdowns, any reactions there?
Yeah. Well, I think I'm totally on your side about Luca. I wanted to see that in theaters. I think it's nice that they're not going to be charging anything extra to watch on Disney Plus. So I'll definitely be down to check that out on streaming. But I thought it was interesting, and Will Mavity on Twitter pointed this out. Does Disney know something we don't? Because if they're putting this exclusively on Disney Plus, that means that they're completely eliminating a Pixar movie from the Oscar race, which would be weird. So maybe that's a hint that they're going to keep those Oscar rules where they basically said, hey, where if it was supposed to be released in theaters, but because of the pandemic, you guys decided to do it on streaming or VOD or whatever, it'll still count. So keep an eye on that. That's kind of weird.
I can see them. I mean, I don't know if they would make it a permanent rule, but I could see them with everything still lingering right now. Like,
right.
I mean, anything that came out in March is not eligible for this year's Oscars. So anything like from then on, anything March, April, May, June probably are still all going to be like pandemic impacted.
Right.
So,
yeah, I think so.
I could see them letting it slide for another year and then going back if they don't make it permanent.
Right, for sure. And Black Widow, I think it's nice that they're giving people options. I'm definitely going to go check it out at theaters. I'm not going to spend $30 to watch it at home. Shang-Chi, I think it's good. They moved it back. They're going to give it a proper amount. I would assume a proper amount of like marketing. They'll get a good 2-3 months of that in like during the summer. Once,
because we haven't seen anything from that, right?
We haven't. And that was the thing I think people were concerned about, because it was supposed to come out in July. It's just a few months away, and we still hadn't heard anything, seen anything. I think now I would imagine we'd get a trailer for it either later this spring or during the summer with like maybe Black Widow or something like that. And then the rest of these, not really that interested. I think it's been pointed out, Deep Water moving to January is not a good sign.
We kind of escaped that with the pandemic delays, but now I think it's back to January means January.
Yeah, it means January. And this is the kind of drama, like almost like sexual thriller with Ana de Armas and Ben Affleck, which people were kind of wondering if that was going to be any type of an awards play or not, but maybe not, unless they would give it some sort of limited release in December. And again, that's assuming that they go back to the old Oscar qualification window and not extending it. But all in all, Not a ton of interest here, just because, again, not crazy about any of these movies to begin with, but it's definitely a lot of, big movements, and hopefully these are the final release dates that any of these movies get.
Agreed. I mean, honestly, they should have released Death on the Nile and Free Guy and The King's Man on Hulu months ago. Delaying these for so long, it's not like it's your Black. I'm sure they'll still make money, but it's not like it's a Black Widow or a Soul or a Luke, something that needs to continue to shift around. This is getting to the point where just pull the trigger, cut your losses, and move on.
I agree 100%.
Next up on the docket, 3-time Oscar nominee Emerald Fennell from Promising Young Woman, the writer-director over there, is set to write Zatanna, a feature for Warner Brothers and DC. Johnny, tell me about Zatanna. Who is this?
So she is basically, she is a magical being. So something close to, using an MCU parallel, like a Wanda, the Scarlet Witch. She is a lot of times associated with Dr. Fate, which is a character that we're going to be seeing on the big screen with Black Adam. And that character, again, is if you want to use the MCU parallel, is like a Doctor Strange. So a big, especially in the magical side of DC things, because I feel like that isn't something that's been touched on hardly much, if ever, really, in the live action films or shows. She's a big figure, and one of the more popular female characters, especially. So people have been wondering, is she going to get like a HBO Max show? Are they going to try to do a feature film? Like, what's the situation? And I'm so stoked that, of course, first and foremost, that Emerald Fennell is involved, because while I have my issues with Promising Young Woman, I thought that she, has a very distinct vision and has, some wit, some style. Of course, she's got nominated for 3 Oscars, so she's going to have a ton of opportunities coming her way. And the fact that I think she chose this says a lot. And then just seeing this character come, not just to live action, but on the big screen is really exciting. Of course, J.J. Abrams is going to be producing, just like he's doing the Black Superman film. So yeah, he's got his hands in a bunch of different things at DC and Warner Brothers right now. But yeah,
it's DC trying to. Marvel already had future Best Director winner Chloe Zhao locked up, so DC was like, we've got to get some Oscar talent in here as well.
Yeah, it's funny how that works. But I don't know. Would you like to see Fennell direct this, or is there another director that you think would be a good fit for it? And who also, we got to think about casting as well. Zatanna, who would you like to see? Is there anyone that comes to mind? I know that Ana de Armas has been a huge fan cast for a while now.
Looking at this, I literally just pulled up the article talking about when Emerald Fennell was announced, and the picture of Zatanna that's in there looks like Ana de Armas, so I could totally see that.
Yeah.
I don't really know. Again, you just explained to me who the character is, so I haven't been brainstorming fan cast for a while. I also, just from looking at the photo, I got Haley Steinfeld vibes, but obviously she's on the Marvel side already, which doesn't rule her out, but it's probably ruling her out.
Yeah.
And also she's got the Bumblebee franchise as well, so she might be stretching herself a little too thin there.
Right.
But as far as director goes, I mean, I loved Promising Young Woman, so I would be totally down to see Fennell direct and write as well. And I think that's also something that usually works out well when it is the same on both ends.
Yeah.
But obviously if she wrote it, she knows what she has in mind direction wise for it. So I think that makes sense there. And she's obviously proven what she's capable of with a Best Director and a Best Screenplay nomination.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
any ideas on your end with a little more information as far as director or star?
I mean, Ana de Armas is just a no-brainer, obvious, very popular pick. But I imagine there's a good amount of other suitable young actors. I think Aiza Gonzalez would be a really cool pick. Especially, again, 2 more popular actors, and both. It's interesting because both of them already have some DC ties, or at least interest, because as we know, they were both finalists for Catwoman in the Batman, which of course, went to Zoe Kravitz ultimately, but they already kind of have those contacts. It would be cool to see them maybe reach back out for that one. And then as far as directing, I mean, Fennell, again, makes total sense if she were to do it. I would love to see her do it. But if not, I don't know. There's it's like almost sad because it feels like there's almost so few popular like female directors out. And if they are out, they have plenty of other projects that they already have going on or are attached to. Chloe Zhao, for instance, you just mentioned. Man.
Olivia Wilde.
Olivia Wilde would be
That's
fun.
my go. She's already got Spider-Woman locked up though.
Exactly. Well, that just proves my point. I mean, it's like one, kind of breaks out and then they're immediately swallowed up by 2 or 3 projects. And at least one of them is like a blockbuster comic book property. Karen Kusama maybe would be a cool pick. I know she, again, is supposed to be doing a Dracula movie for, I think, Universal. But maybe she can make time. Who knows? Maybe they'll get a young up and comer that we aren't even really familiar with yet. So
I will say, I just pulled up 10 actresses who could play Zatanna, and Isa Gonzalez was on there, like you mentioned. So were Ana de Armas and Haley Steinfeld, who I mentioned. So we seem pretty basic in our picks there, but as well, one that I saw, Alexandra Daddario on there, but most interesting for me, Margaret Qualley. I think I was a big fan of her in The Nice Guys and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I think just, again, going off that one picture of the character who I saw, I think she could be a good fit. Their number 1 on this list is Kaya Scodelario. I'm not familiar with her. She's on the show Skins and was in Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales, which I guess she was the mermaid. Was that the 5th one or the 4th? I don't know. Those got messy after a while.
Yeah. No, but those, I think that's all good picks. But speaking of casting, Zach, in DC Comics films, we have a major capture here on the DC front. They got Oscar winner Helen Mirren, and she will be playing the villain in Shazam: Fury of the Gods, the sequel to the 2019 film. It's so crazy because she's been cast. She'll play Hespera, the daughter of Atlas. But the real interesting part here is that we had already seen Rachel Zegler cast in the film. It wasn't clear who she was going to be playing, but a casting report that had come out in like October that I had read, it said that they were going to be casting 3 women as sisters, these kind of like, Greek mythology sisters, and that it would be 3 different ages. The youngest one, they were looking for like a Zendaya type. Of course, that is like a Rachel Zegler, totally fits. And then someone that's a little bit more in the middle, like middle-aged. They mentioned, I think, Halle Berry or Eva Green. And then Helen Mirren was the older sister that they were looking at. And they said that was the ideal pick. And now months later, Helen Mirren is actually cast in this damn thing.
They said it and they got it. They spoke it into existence.
They spoke it into existence. And Greek mythology, once I read in the report that she plays a daughter of Atlas. I looked. And in Greek mythology, there's 3 Hesperides sisters. And we already have these 2 women cast. So I feel like that report is going to, totally pan out. And then, maybe we can expect a third, kind of A-list name to pop up. Eva Green and Halle Berry were the 2 mentioned. I think both of those would be really cool and really fun. But definitely watch that space. But Helen Mirren, I mean, that's always exciting. Shazam, looking forward to it. I really like the first one. So,
I mean, that's really, I guess Helen Mirren was also in Hobbs and Shaw. So it's not like she's a complete prestige actress, who's like only taking like she obviously has like a incredible proven track record of like prestige projects, but she's also down to have some fun. So like her being cast here doesn't suddenly take Shazam: Fury of the Gods to being a Best Picture candidate, but it's obviously going to make it that much better having her. So that's exciting to add anytime you add like talent like that to a cast. And obviously we haven't seen Rachel Zegler yet, but just from what we know on social media of her, like I like her a lot. So I'm excited to hopefully find out who this third one is, if there is one. I think you're onto something.
Yeah, I'm excited to keep an eye out on that, and this should be going to production. I mean, sometime this year. I think maybe during the summer. So DC ramping up, plenty of things going on, and one last bit of news before we hop and knock out our double header reviews. We have Ghost of Tsushima, which is the like smash hit PlayStation 4 game that came out. Great reviews, already kind of a classic. They have a film in development, a film adaptation of that game going on over at Sony, of course. They're keeping it in-house, makes perfect sense. And the big piece here that makes it kind of more exciting, because we know with video game adaptations, they don't have a great track record and can very easily go south, is that we have director Chad Stahelski, who directed all three of the John Wick films and is preparing to direct the fourth one. He is attached as the director of this film. So what do you think, Zach? I don't think you've played the game. I don't know how familiar you are with it, but
One of the other podcasts I listen to, they talk about it a lot. So I'm like somewhat, I know it's like samurais and like a ton of sword play. And you had the tweet of, okay, all I need to know is like Chad Stahelski. We saw John Wick 3. We saw what Keanu did with the swords and what the two attackers, the twins, the sword play there was off the charts. So that like gives me enough confidence to go into this thinking that it'll be better than your average video game adaptation.
Yeah, so I think it's fun. It's exciting. I know Sony, of course, they have their hands in a bunch of different cookie jars. I think it's just awesome that these video game adaptations seem like they're being taken more and more seriously as like time goes on, which I think, of course, always helps their chances of actually being good. Sony, same production company, has the Last of Us series, in development over at HBO, which has like some amazing talent attached, and they're working toward production on that, which should also be going on later this summer. I would imagine this Ghost of Tsushima film is a ways away because he has to get through John Wick 4, and then we'll see what happens after that. But something to keep an eye on. I haven't played the game. I have a PlayStation 5. I've been PlayStation my whole life. I definitely want to go back and make time for that and grab that and play it. But because I have heard nothing but good things, and it'd be nice to have a little background on it before the film comes out. So seems like I have plenty of time to get that done.
I mean, when doing your research involves playing a video game, I don't think that's ever a bad thing. So
absolutely.
I can't blame you there. But Johnny, I want to know, let's get into this review. I want to know about Nobody. Is it worth me going to see it in the theaters once I get this second shot? Let's break it down. Give me the rundown here.
Yeah, so Nobody. I didn't know. I'm going to hop into the plot and Rotten Tomatoes and all that in a second, but I didn't know a ton about it. I knew Bob Odenkirk. I'd seen the trailer, so I knew Bob Odenkirk was the star. I knew that it was a John Wick kind of adjacent film. It's by the same screenwriter who's done all three of those John Wick movies, Derek Kolstad. And so I thought it looked fun. Thought it looked, exciting enough. But I didn't know much about the supporting cast. I didn't know much about like why the story happens, what the motivations are and whatnot. Because John Wick, of course, is very famous for his dog getting killed. And that's kind of what spurs the entire incident in all three movies that have played out from there. But this, of course, like I said, stars Bob Odenkirk in the lead role. Connie Nielsen plays his wife. RZA from Wu-Tang Clan is in there. Alexei Serebryakov is the villain, a Russian villain. Very authentic, unlike Kenneth Branagh in Tenet, which I roasted about a little bit last night on Twitter. And then finally, Christopher Lloyd plays Bob Odenkirk's father, which is very fun cameo. His father, David, and they have a little fun little chemistry going on there, and it was cool to see. It's always fun to see Christopher Lloyd because he's a legend, but in this different type of role, it was especially fun. Rotten Tomatoes, 79% critic score, 94% audience score, so doing very well for itself. And it actually overperformed at the box office this weekend, so that's always good to see. I gave it a 3.5 on Letterboxd, so I'd say like pretty strong 67, 68 out of 100. And the plot, once again, for those who don't know, let me do my best Jake Lawler impression here. Hutch Mansell, played by Bob Odenkirk, fails to defend himself or his family when two thieves break into his suburban home one night. The aftermath of the incident soon strikes a match to his long simmering rage. In a barrage of fists, gunfire, and squealing tires, Hutch must now save his wife and son from a dangerous adversary and ensure that he will never be underestimated again.
Sounds intense.
All right. But yeah, Zach, lay it on me. What do you want to know?
Well, I, like you, do not have much of a background in this. I'd seen the poster pretty much. I don't even know if I've seen a trailer. I'm going to be honest.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But I like the poster. He's getting punched in the face. So, it's going to be like some sort of like gritty action movie. Bob Odenkirk, my familiarity with him. I haven't watched Better Call Saul, but I've seen all of Breaking Bad. So like saw him plenty in that. And in that, he's more of like the slime ball schmoozy kind of guy. So I want to know, we've heard about his transformation. He did 2 years of training to learn how to do his own stunts. How does he pull it off? Is he a convincing badass, basically? And while I'm saying this, I just want to note that looking at these photos, I got to say it, Bob Odenkirk in this movie and Andy Lawler have a little bit of a similarity here. Okay. Yeah. I don't know if you see that, but
I can see that.
If he's listening, it's meant as a compliment.
He's not quite as jacked as Andy, of course, but
of course. But when I've seen this picture of him, like he's got kind of the grizzled beard going on, and that's what Andy was sporting in Good Samaritan. So I could see it.
Well, are
we sure Andy wasn't the stunt double?
And no, Bob Odenkirk probably didn't need much of a stunt double in this because, as I said on Twitter last night, he is mind-blowing with some of the stuff he does in this. As you said, the 2 years of training preparing for it. I mean, it's just as interesting and as exciting to watch as Keanu as John Wick. And honestly, it might be a little bit more exciting just because Bob Odenkirk is not known for being an action star. He has no prior experience on film doing this kind of stuff, but his hand-to-hand combat, his gunplay, his knife play, all that, it is fun as hell to watch. It's impressive to watch. It feels real. It feels brutal. You see this guy kind of struggling because he is a little bit, he's set up to be kind of over the hill and past his prime, and out of practice. But to the way he kind of evolves throughout the movie as well is exciting to see. He kind of gets his groove back, and it's brutal. The violence itself is more violent than I expected, honestly. There's some moments in this that made me cringe more than maybe anything in the John Wick movies, or at least most of the stuff in those movies, including like a tracheotomy that goes down.
Oh God!
A C4 device is used or a claymore is used to a very fun, devastating effect in a key scene. I mean, bottles, like knives, machine guns, shields, like anything you can imagine, they kind of pull into this. And while, like I said, the rest of the cast is really fun, does really well, it totally is on Bob Odenkirk's shoulders to make all the action seem real, seem legit, and believable.
Is this more in terms of the action? We keep referencing John Wick, which is very like tactical and like high level action. Is this more along the lines of that? Like, are these trained professionals, does it seem? Or is it more of like I'm in the environment, I'm grappling with what I can find, and it's like a street fight versus
so it's a little bit of both, actually. It's interesting that you pointed that out because, and I don't know if you said you may not have even seen a trailer for this, but I know a lot of people have probably seen in the trailer in a TV spot or something. There's a fight that happens on a bus. And that is very much more like a street fight kind of brawl, but it's kind of his reintroduction to that world. And then as the film kind of progresses, more and more professionals get involved. He, as a professional, kind of starts to reemerge and like get his groove back. So it kind of is a little bit of both, but I'd say it's more technical and high level because he is supposed to be this very experienced kind of assassin in a way. And
Okay.
again, his training, it feels and looks just like John Wick, and it's just as convincing in that respect.
It sounds sort of in the like dad revenge genre. So I'm thinking like Nobody, Taken, Cold Pursuit. This is a very Liam Neeson sounding role. Prisoners, Prisoners is very different, but like not the action,
right?
So like the dad revenge, but like this is a very different type of like
in the biggest
the dad killing everybody to get revenge and right the wrong. Is it does it make a good doubleheader with Taken, or is that a wrong comparison to make?
I would say the biggest thing, maybe why it wouldn't, and and this is again something that I didn't really mention it until now, but this movie is much more has much more of a comedy bent than the John Wick movies.
Okay.
There are funny moments in those John Wick movies and kind of like bits of irony and things like that, like dark humor. But here, again, it's dark humor as well in this, but I think the fact that it's Bob Odenkirk allows for more of those jokes and more of that humor because it's already kind of subverting some of that with him in the role. I mean, the dude's name is Hutch. Okay. So he's not what you'd consider a cool guy on the surface, you know what I mean? And the film very much does well to establish that feeling.
Unlike Andy Lawler, just want to set the record straight.
Unlike
very cool
Andy
guy,
Lawler, who's very much a cool guy. Hutch Mansell is not a cool guy until he goes into murder mode. But yeah, even as you mentioned, the inciting incident. I mean, in Taken, his damn daughter gets abducted and put into like a sex trafficking ring. In this, the inciting incident is that a child little kitty piece of jewelry gets accidentally taken out of his home, and then that's kind of what causes everything to transpire from there. But I'd say
very different events to get things
very
started.
different events to be sure. But no, it's still fun. It's still brutal. And again, making that Taken comparison, Taken is a solid action movie, but I feel like you don't necessarily watch it for like the action per se. Like it's done well, but it's not like Mission Impossible or John Wick, or it's not on that level. It's like, I mean, Liam Neeson can only do so much at the age that he was when they made at least that first film. But this is, it's more stylized. It's more interesting. And I didn't know this until after. And I thought I didn't really notice his impact on the film visually while I was watching it, but Pavel Pogorzelski, who was the cinematographer on Hereditary and Midsommar, did the cinematography on this. So shout out to him. I mean, it looks good. It looks like a solid film. It's well framed and composed and whatnot, but nothing like really stood out to me, especially like an Ari Aster film, for sure.
Gotcha. I wanted you said 3.5 out of 5, 60, 67, 68, somewhere around there. What is it that's holding it back? Because basically all we've talked about so far is like the great action, the characters, like the good stuff. What is it that is keeping this from being a solid 4.5?
Yeah, I think really it's just the fact that it is so derivative. It's so much of what you've seen before from these kinds of films. I mean, you listed a good amount in the the father revenge subgenre, or just the John Wick type of action film that has emerged over the last 7 or 8 years. Your Atomic Blondes, your John Wick 1, 2, and 3. And again, Derek Kolstad is directly involved here. He wrote the script. And it's fun, and it's I think the acting's good. I think the action's great. I think that it's a fine looking film. It just doesn't have a ton of originality, and the script itself has enough unique and fun things, inventive things that keep you interested, but it doesn't add a ton of depth to all the characters, or like any character in particular, I would say, outside of Hutch, Bob Odenkirk's character. The villain is a little bit weak as well. I mean, the villains in the John Wick movies aren't, they aren't super memorable. They aren't really the draw either. So I kind of expected that. But and speaking of Atomic Blonde, I mean, my John Wick relationship, I really like those first two movies. I'm not so big on the third one. Atomic Blonde, I wasn't so big on either. And so I'd say this falls kind of right in the middle, where I like this and thought it was a bit better than John Wick Chapter 3 or Atomic Blonde, but I would still put John Wick and John Wick Chapter 2 over this. Just because those were, again, more original movies. They came out earlier. So they're a bit more fresh with this kind of concept. And those films look beautiful. I mean, the cinematography, the lighting, the way they capture the action in very interesting ways, where this is a little bit more by the numbers. But yeah, I think it's a solid, good action movie. I didn't think it was mind blowing. I didn't think overall that it was like exceptional. I just thought it was a good, worthwhile experience.
Gotcha. Any final thoughts to wrap up on Nobody? It sounds like I'm going to need to check this out once I
think you dig
it. Clear for takeoff at the theaters.
Yeah, no, I think you definitely dig it. I think you might even like it more than I did. But no, I recommend checking it out. Definitely gets the stamp of approval. If it's safe for you to go out and check it out in a theater, do so, or wait for it to come out on VOD or on Blu-ray. But yeah, no, it's a fun. And again, it can't be stated enough. If you like the John Wick movies, if you're a big fan of those, you're gonna like this movie. Like, there's no doubt about it. And as far as I know, a lot of people like John Wick. So looking at Rotten Tomatoes for this movie, it seems like a lot of people like this movie too. And the crowd that I saw it with last night definitely enjoyed it audibly. So yeah, I can't. Will they do a sequel to this? I don't know. Will they franchise this into like a John Wick type of film series? I don't think so. But I'm glad we kind of got this one off. And Bob,
well, I mean, you kind of got to. Nobody's the first one, then everybody's the second one. Anybody, everybody. Everybody? You could just pivot it like that.
Absolutely. But no, I dug it. It was and that's the thing too, is I was even a little bit apprehensive just because I wasn't so big on the last John Wick movie. And I hadn't seen a ton from this, and what I had heard was like, okay, it's like John Wick. But I was, again, pleasantly surprised. The rest of the supporting cast does well, and the action is very much hard-hitting and impressive. So no letdowns in that respect either.
Good stuff. Glad to hear it. Well, my experience was not as positive as that. It doesn't sound like.
No, it doesn't.
It wasn't all bad, but we'll get into it. But I was checking out Bad Trip on Netflix. It came out this past week, starring Eric Andre, Lil Rel Howery, and Tiffany Haddish. It's one of those. I don't know if it's kind of under the radar. I feel like I didn't see much fanfare leading up to it. So I really didn't know about it until you actually mentioned it when we were scheduling stuff for what we were going to do on this episode. But it's one of those similar to like a Jackass or a Borat, or I guess the like Bad Grandpa. Is it Bad Grandpa or Dirty Grandpa? Which one?
Bad
one
Grandpa.
Of those is like a movie and one is like a prank show.
It's Bad Grandpa, I'm pretty sure. Actually,
okay.
No, it's Bad Grandpa. Yeah, it is Bad Grandpa.
Jackass presents Bad Grandpa. But this is like, it's obviously you have those three actors, Eric Andre, Lil Rel Howery, and Tiffany Haddish, and then they have a fictional story that's going on that they're acting out, but it's all happening in real time in real situations with unsuspecting people in like a prank show type element. So it's the general premise is that like there's a fourth actress as well that plays the love interest, and so she's in on it as well, which is Michaela Conlon. But basically Eric Andre's character, Eric Andre is Chris and Lil Rel Howery is Bud. So Chris and Bud are best friends. and they live in like Tampa, Florida, somewhere around like in mid to South Florida.
Okay.
Tiffany Haddish is Bud's sister, who is a convict who's just escaped from prison. But Eric Andre's in love with this woman, Maria, who's the fourth actress, and he hasn't seen her since high school. It was his high school crush, and she invites him to come to New York for her art gallery. And it's just like a very, oh yeah, if you're ever in New York, I've got an art gallery, like come by. And he misinterprets it as like, oh, she invited me to come, like she wants me to come. So him and Bud basically go on this road trip across or up the East Coast so that he can meet her and express his love to her and hopefully like fall in love, basically. And along the way, so the way that they go about doing this is they steal Tiffany Haddish's car while she's in prison, and then she escapes and comes to look for her car, finds out that her brother and his friend stole it, and now she's like chasing them up the coast. So pretty nonsensical, funny, good time plot there. But and then like I said, while that's all happening, they're making stops up and down the coast at different places and having these elaborate gags and pranks that go down on the unsuspecting guests. So currently Rotten Tomatoes, I was shocked to see this, honestly, 71% critic score at 70% audience score. So pretty high. This is like, I would recommend watching it. I didn't love it or anything. I probably wouldn't rewatch it, but I gave this a 42 out of 100. But that was, I would say, if I had to split it up, first 30 minutes are like 80 out of 100, and then it tails off very fast. This started off really strong with 2 or 3 like really, really, really funny bits, the different pranks they had set up, which I'll get into in a minute. But then kind of just went downhill from there. I think Eric Andre was the best part, hands down. I don't know if you're familiar with him just in general, but he's hysterical. I like some of the best memes are of him, like the outside the White House, let us in, shaking the gates, the how would you say something so bold yet contra or whatever that is, and then like the shooting the guy, he's great content all around. But he's so funny, his stuff is hysterical, and then it makes anything that the other two do are just like nothing compared to his. I don't know if that's just me or if everybody felt that same way. I'm kind of over Tiffany Haddish. I think I made this statement a lot with Jake on the podcast. And it's funny that you were talking about Bridesmaids earlier, because I had said after Girls Trip, basically, that Tiffany Haddish was like the new Melissa McCarthy, where she has her breakout role in Girls Trip, like McCarthy did in Bridesmaids. And then it was like everything is that same character. And she just like keeps getting cast as the same like type of humor. And so it's definitely the case here as well. And I don't know if it's just her or like Eric Andre just like has a way with these people, the real life people, of making it feel like it is happening, like they're experiencing something realistic, versus their Howery and Haddish both, like their scenes are like too over the top where it kind of feels fake instead of like something that's really happening to them. But another, like, it's not quite your Borat level of like, those movies are so like intricately designed in like their bits and their gags of like making it the best possible situation to pull something off. But this is more of like what I haven't seen it, but like what I would anticipate of like a bad grandpa. Like I've seen Jackass, like it's those kind of pranks versus like something as elaborate. But I want to go, feel free to lob any questions up there, but I want to also talk about the ones at the beginning. I'll throw a spoiler alert out there, because the first one, I feel like I'd seen this on social media, maybe like back when it was being made, but it's when he first runs into his love of his life. He's posed as working at like an Auto Bell type car cleaning service, and this guy's getting his car detailed, and then Maria, the woman, pulls in, and he's like, oh my God, he tells the dude, like, that's my high school crush, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to tell her I love her. And she like goes to take a phone call, and he's like, okay, let me finish your car. And he has like this super heavy like heavy duty vacuum to clean out the car. And the vacuum, he like sets it up so it's gonna suck his jumpsuit that he's wearing, and he tells the dude to turn the switch on so he can vacuum the car, and it sucks his jumpsuit right off, and he's like naked standing there. And then the woman comes back and he has to like jump in this dude's BMW butt ass naked, and he's like hiding. And this guy just like has no idea what to do, and he's trying to help him out. He like gives him his sweatshirt to wrap himself up in. So like that's literally how the movie starts. And I was like, this is gonna be a blast. And then he follows that up with like a musical number. Like he figures out that he's gonna go chase after Maria and tell her how he feels. And he like has this conversation with this nice man on a park bench. And then he stands up as if he's in like La La Land or like a musical. And he like starts singing and doing like really bad choreography and jumping on cars as if it is like what you would see in a movie musical, but he's doing it in real life. And everybody's just like, what the hell is going on? He like goes through the mall doing that. And it's almost like a flash mob breaks out. So that whole beginning just like had me dying. And then it was a bit of a disappointment later on.
Gosh, that's tough. Yeah, because that does sound genuinely quite funny.
I mean, and there are like bits here and there throughout the rest of it that are funny as well. But it's just like they were like shooting 100% for like the first 20 to 30 minutes, and then it kind of tailed off to like 50%, which was the bummer. There's one, it kind of goes from like those big early ones to then being like, I don't know, it's almost like some of it's funny, but then some of it is like almost like too mean or rude to like the people that are like experiencing it. There's one, they get there at like a gas station, they buy a Chinese finger trap. You remember those like toys that you like stick your fingers in and they get stuck? And so then they have like this wild night and get drunk and I guess they like do some drugs or something. And when they wake up, their dicks are stuck into opposite ends of the Chinese finger trap. And they have to like run around town trying to get people to help them take their dicks out of this. And it's like, obviously it's not their real dick. Like it's like prosthetic because they're like stretching them super far.
Right.
And they're like trying to pull each other apart. And like, otherwise you would die. That would be awful. But it's like, that's like pretty funny, but also like very disturbing if I was on the street and someone came up to me to try and get help with that.
Oh my gosh. Wow. I had heard about that because I think that was the incident where which I think it was Lil Rel Howery who he said after that, I guess someone like threatened them. And then he like left and like went back to the hotel and he was just like pissed. And like they went in, there's a scene, they like go in during that scene, they go into like a barber shop and then somebody comes out with a knife, like chasing them. So maybe that's what he was referencing. Yeah, that is that. Yeah. Huh. Well, that sounds nuts. I feel like I kind of have to see this now because it just sounds so wild.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's only 85 minutes. It's on Netflix. It's there. So like, but I didn't have the feeling like after I watched it, like that was a waste, you know?
Yeah. But you hated it basically.
I really enjoyed the first 30 minutes and then I made it through the last half. So,
okay. So what, I get that you're saying that some of it felt a little too like mean spirited, but I guess, was there anything that stuck out that took it down to a certain level where your score dropped so much, your enjoyment dropped so much in that second half?
I mean, some like the bits that I've talked about, the bits that I've talked about are all like well executed and funny.
Yeah.
But then some of the, like when they had that like drug trip, it's like they're just walking around a grocery store like acting weird and like dancing and like trying to get people's attention and like basically like stepping up like they're about to hit them or something, you know, just kind of like acting, just like trying to freak people out.
Yeah.
And then I'm trying to think of some more. So like that, it's like it's not bad, but it's just like it's not funny, you know. So it's like some of that stuff kind of wore out, and then I don't know, a lot of it is also just like yelling. Like it's basically like it's like the two guys go into like on their road trip, they stop and go into like a diner, and then they like make themselves known and talk to some people, and then they leave. And then 2 minutes later, Tiffany Haddish comes in and goes, "Yo, I'm looking for these two guys. Have you seen him?" And then like she's yelling and shouting and stuff. Yeah. And then she leaves, and then they come back like 2 minutes later, and then they're like, "Get out, run!" And then she comes back 2 minutes later, and it's like they keep missing each other. There's also one scene where they're at like a zoo in I think it's in North Carolina, and they have replaced a real gorilla with like a man in a very realistic gorilla suit. And so Eric Andre sneaks in and acts like he's getting a selfie with the gorilla, and then the gorilla starts to fuck him like doggy style, and these people think that he's like actually getting assaulted by a gorilla, and it's intense. But they do a nice job of like at the end. They show like during the credits, they show them like revealing to everybody like at each station of like the directors come out, the cameras reveal themselves, and they like it's not like these people continued thinking that they actually witnessed a gorilla maul a man. Like, so it's fun. There are definitely parts that are better than others. Yeah. But I mean, if you're looking for something just to throw on and be entertained by, it's obviously not something that you need to invest a lot of time or brain power into.
Right. Okay. Damn. Well, yeah, that sounds, I mean, it's funny because I actually was the one who kind of threw this out as an option for us to review, and I haven't even ended up seeing it. So I guess you have me to thank, Zach.
Yeah, this is, I feel like I was going to say this is payback for Cherry, but this is much more enjoyable than what I heard that was.
Let's not go that far, sir.
All right. Well,
Cherry
maybe
2.5 hours, damn it.
Yeah, this is a breeze compared to that.
Oh man. Well, it sounds like I think it could definitely be. And I haven't checked or tracked how this is doing on Netflix. I don't know if it's been like in the top 10 or whatever, but it sounds like a Netflix movie, and it sounds like something that might, do relatively well on there.
Yeah, I mean, I could see that as well. I let me see if I can pull up the Netflix top 10, see what we're working with. Give me 1 second here. Pull up the old flicks. It's number, let's see, it's number 1 in the US today. So plenty of people are checking it out. Okay. So maybe you'll join in and let me know what you think next week on the pod. But that is all we have today. Thank you all for listening. We really appreciate the support week in and week out. Couldn't do it without you. Just can't say thank you enough.
Yeah, absolutely. As always, thank you for listening and supporting on here and on social media. If you don't already, you can follow us on Twitter. Stay up to date with those giveaways, our polls, everything else we got over there, our memes. Instagram, TikTok, like us on Facebook, subscribe on YouTube where you can catch all the podcast episodes in their entirety. And those accounts can all be found at Inside Film Room.
And while you are at it, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. We're on Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, Google, Amazon, anywhere that you listen to a podcast, you can find us. And come back next week for the smackdown of the century, Godzilla vs. Kong. We're talking about it, breaking it all down. So we will see you next time. Thank you.